How do I avoid civil wars? How do I avoid rebellions? These are two questions I see pop up in the Steam discussions for Imperator Rome all the time. And so I wanted to tackle that today, even though I doubt any of them are looking at YouTube, to tell you guys how you can avoid these two things. And to clarify, they are two different things. This right here is your risk of civil war. I found it under my nation overview. It's this little flag right here. It'll appear in different indicators. If you have a risk of it, it'll pop up as a banner. Same thing with rebellions, but this is civil war. And for rebellion, that has to come from an actual province. If you want to find places that are disloyal, there's a map mode for it down here. Remember, if you haven't seen any earlier tutorials, you find the map modes here, you drag them over here as a quick access. You don't need anything special to get these map modes. I just customized it to be this way. And you can see the loyalty of every single settlement and territory and the unrest or lack thereof that it is contributing to all of your provinces. And you can see all of your provinces with a province map mode. If I click on a province, I can see right here the province loyalty. I can see its current trends and its current status. If it gets down to 0, you're going to have rebellion. Just like if this little bar here that's currently invisible but goes in like a diamond shape fills up to full, you're going to have a civil war. Now let's talk about what they are, how to distinguish them, and how to prevent them, more importantly. So a civil war is a risk of your nation splitting its power, its land, and its territory, and its money, and everything between two distinct entities: the controlling government, you, and someone else, another character in your nation. For a civil war to happen, someone else has to be powerful enough to threaten you. And right here you see, for me, currently, it's different for every nation depending on what tech you have, what passive effects you have, and just, who you are. I have a 22% threshold. So if 22% of the total power base of my nation, so if I go to characters, I can sort by power base right here, and I can see from top to bottom. You see the legate, the leader of my legions, is the one with the most power base, more than even the ruler has, and the co-ruler. Combined, they are better, but still. And then the two tribunes after him, if you include all the tribunes, then the legion commanders, for example, control way more power than most of the politicians that we have, and that is where you can look into preventing some power base accumulation, which we'll get into in a moment. But you see all this, it gives it to you an actual numerical value instead of percentage, but there is a percentage to all the power base combined in your country. And once that passes 22%, in my case, it's only at 0.56% right now, then a civil war will happen, led by the most powerful person in the opposing faction. Now, disloyalty comes from a lot of different things. If we go into power base, look at the legate, and we will find he's not excessively loyal. Loyalty goes up to 100, and it goes down to 0, and it can kind of overspill as well, but that is the only range you really need to note. The base, plus a lot of things we have, give him a good chance to have good loyalty. So why is he so disloyal? And just note, he does not currently count as disloyal. You have to get around like 33% before it really counts as disloyal. If we take a look, we could see what is influencing him to be less loyal than average. And one of them is disloyalty inspired. Now, this is a big deal. This is something other players would gladly do to each other if you're playing multiplayer, but it's not the biggest thing. As you can see, the single biggest thing is the power base in country. The more powerful somebody in your country is, without ruling the country, the less loyal that person's going to be. Because why should he be? So if you let one character, one politician, one legion leader, one legate get a lot of power, that's where you're going to start having problems with loyalty. So you want to spread power out, ideally. Don't have your whole military rely on one legion, which is very convincing and easy to do in the beginning. unless you're ready to deal with keeping that man loyal. Keeping someone loyal that is not loyal can involve some steps, such as bribing that person, and this option can change based on the traits you or that person has. For example, right here we see if someone's honest, then you can't really do bribes, but there's other ways to avoid certain penalties to bribing as well that come with certain traits. And you'll see them when you get them. You can't really control them too well in the case of Rome because, well, you're a republic. You could make friends with that person. If that person's friends with your leader, then that person will be more loyal. You could give them free hands, which they need to have an office for this. This only works for politicians. Then they'll be more loyal, but they're rapidly going to gain monthly corruption. Maybe not very good thing to use on a young 20-year-old legate, for example. You could grant them holdings, which costs money. Holdings are like small estates located throughout your territories. They don't have a lot of relevance except for granting a permanent small amount of power base to whomever owns them, but it will grant loyalty as well. There are also lots of texts, I believe they're not in Civic, in Oratory on the right-hand side, not the left-hand, the right-hand side, extreme right-hand side. Look for the little hands especially. This is the loyalty counter. +4 loyalty to all characters. This is another way. With governors, there's some that specifically target generals as well. These are ways to keep loyalty up. When playing a republic, another thing that's relevant is your approval with certain factions. If a faction doesn't approve of you, then neither will anybody in its, well, it. This person doesn't have any power base, but if you look, he has a minus 12.39 to loyalty because of low faction approval. So that's another thing that can affect loyalty and that you want to look at for controlling civil wars. Other than managing loyalty, all you can really do to prevent civil wars is going to be avoid amassing power in individuals like this. Heads of families, leaders of parties, these will start to amass power over time, especially of parties like the Optimates. They usually like having power with holdings, but as you see, the Populares, those dirty communists, they're the ones that have the most power in my nation. Currently, they rule it. They have the strongest legate, but they also have an admiral, deployed tribune here as well. Oh god, the list goes on with them. Unless your threshold for civil war is just really, really low, then a civil war is going to be a group effort. So once you start noticing some pop-ups saying, hey, disloyal character, and if they have any relevant power base, do something. For example, if it's a governor, find a way to get him replaced. You know, make him like you temporarily, replace him. Now he won't have as much of a power base. Now you put someone more loyal into the spot of the governor. If it's a legate, same thing. Get rid of him. If it is a legate, you could actually go a step further, for example, and you can just flat out pay off that legate's veterans. Right here, see reward veterans, you pay money, and then they're no longer loyal to him and thus he loses power base. That's where legates get a lot of their loyalty from. The numbers are ridiculous because this game scales numbers based on your size, but your income really doesn't scale that crazy. So some of these things at certain points of the game will be unaffordable just due to bad scaling balance, but I don't think that's exactly uncommon in recent Paradox games. So you got to keep a keen eye out and you have to manage. But that right there is how you will prevent civil wars. Now for rebellions, it's going to be something similar, but it's based on specific areas of the map. It's always based on provinces, and you can get information on all your provinces by going to your nation overview, going to administration, going to provinces. You could sort to like the least loyal, for example. Go to location, I can see this right here is the least loyal location I have, and it's dangerously disloyal. It's to the point where I couldn't build anything here if I wanted to. And you can see I'm doing a couple things here to try to make that not really an issue. I have harsh treatment on, which is this right here. It's a governor policy. Some governors will do this by themselves, but you can pay political influence to override that. And I have, maybe not the best governor here, but I have one that is not corrupt. This is corruption right here. It's at 0. If I had a governor that was corrupt, it would vastly, quickly inspire disloyalty, which can lead to a rebellion. Unlike a civil war, which will split your nation relative to the amount of power base that is opposing you, a rebellion will be based around a certain province. However, with player nations, if you have a rebellion proc and there are other provinces that are close to rebelling but not quite there, they will join in on the rebellion pretty much guaranteed. So having multiple provinces in the same area especially rebel all at once is possible. This will not happen for an AI. AI will have one province rebel. The game, even on the easiest difficulty, will then boost the loyalty in all of their provinces, and then it'll take a long time for the next one to trickle back down again. AI can't really be beaten with rebellions very easily. They can with civil wars, but not rebellions. Rebellions are more a player malady. It's unfair, it's unbalanced, and it's stupid that it works like that, but that's the decision they made. Does Paradox, are they known for making good decisions? I don't think so. Looking at the loyalty, you can see even with me having a governor that's not corrupt, even with me having harsh treatment to try to get that loyalty up, we're still losing loyalty. Now, why is this? Because everybody in the province, this is every single settlement, is unhappy. If you start clicking through, looking at the population, look at how unhappy they are. See how unhappy everybody is? Very unhappy. Why are they so unhappy? Well, part of it is because they're all slaves. But you can have happy slaves, and slaves don't need to be super happy. The real problem here is the fact that I've more recently invaded and taken this over. And so if you do that, you go to a culture, for example. Here's a good example. Punics. Punics should be pretty happy in my nation because I've integrated them. That gives me 30%. However, without integrating them, they'd be at 5%. Because, well, right now, with everything else, because I have high aggressive expansion, so that affects it. My ruler's unpopular, so if my ruler doesn't have high popularity, that affects population everywhere. Number of integrated cultures, that affects it only for integrated cultures. The more you integrate, the less every integrated one is happy, because they're not exactly special. And then at war with the country of this culture, this is because I'm at war with Carthage. Carthage is primarily a Punic nation. Since I'm at war with Carthage, all the Punics in my nation will be less happy. And there will be other maladies in these, for example. If I recently conquer them, then they'll have a malady to their happiness as well. Low happiness will then bring down loyalty. And then there's other base things as well, like just by not being integrated, that takes a chunk off. By living in a settlement instead of a city, they're actually unhappy about the harsh treatment. It's good at restoring loyalty, but it does inspire unhappiness. Based just to being a slave, a lack of civilization can affect happiness in terms of non-tribesmen anyway. And then even your governor, certain things about his traits and skills can make them unhappy, or even certain leaders or co-leaders of your nations as well. Other than using, placing a good governor there and using harsh treatment when necessary, there are some rare technologies and things you can do in terms of laws that will grant you territorial loyalty. It's really different for every nation, so it's hard to show that off. But there are resources as well. You could put olives in a location via imports or whatever, for example, to make slaves happier, precious metals for citizens. Take a look at the resources. They all have different effects to increase happiness, and don't forget about stability. High stability increases happiness for everybody. Low stability decreases it for everybody. In addition, there's certain technologies, like religious advances, for example. If you come in here, you'll get the popularity gain you need. You can get unintegrated culture group happiness. You get integrated culture happiness. Things like that right here are how you can affect happiness as well. In religion, divine sacrifice. This is how you keep up your stability, and just in general, the higher the stability, the easier happiness will be to manage. For that civilization, making sure there's enough civilization there to help keep them happy. Build roads. Roads will constantly increase civilization. Build infrastructure. By having just about any building at all, you will increase the maximum civilization level, which you can see right here at this bar. You can see the maximum and what's affecting it. Your tech also affects this, and the current value and the effects that that has. Cities are going to get much higher than, barbarian lands. Being near a city usually has some spillover as well. And then this is really niche, but if you have a holy site somewhere, you can have little treasures that will make pops at that specific location happier, but you need to find these first. including this, which is another bonus you could find called State Religion Happiness. Just makes everybody of the state religion happier, for example. And that's most of what you need to know right there. You know, there's some other little things that should be obvious, I hope, like don't run out of money. That makes everybody unhappy. Keep your country running well. Follow those tips that I gave you just now to fixing and preventing either of those things. And then you shouldn't run into any of these problems. Don't expand super quickly, because if you have high aggressive expansion like I do right now, your monthly stability will go down rather rapidly, bringing down your happiness and causing all sorts of other problems that will lead to potentially civil wars, rebellions, or both of these things happening at once. These things are very easy to prevent if you taper your aggressive actions, only actually proceeding with them if you have enough other actions and behaviors to maintain your current lack of rebellions and your lack of civil wars. It is very easy to avoid these things. You just have to use the mechanics. So hopefully these explanations and these lists for you have been helpful for understanding what civil wars are, what rebellions are, how to avoid them, and how they work. If you have any questions, I can answer them. Just leave your question in the comments below. I got a playlist. This is part of a playlist. I have a ton of guides on how to play this game in case you need help with anything else. But if I am missing something from that playlist you want to see, feel free to suggest an idea for a guide as well in the comments below. A lot of these come from ideas you give me or just questions that I see get asked all the time. For now, though, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope I'll see you on the next one.